So House of the Dead is currently streaming on Hulu. It should be called Island of the Dead, but so I got curious, checked it out. Haven't seen it in forever since I was a kid. I don't think I've seen it since then, and everyone shits on this movie. It's famous for being one of the worst movies ever made. It's got like a 2.7 on IMDb. It's got a 3 on Rotten Tomatoes. And finally, I agree with them. This movie deserves a low rating because it's pretty bad. This was directed and probably, I think, written also by Uwe Boll, some German guy who quit directing and now is a restaurant owner. This movie had a $13 million budget, and despite all the negative reviews, this movie somehow got a sequel that maybe I'll check out again. I haven't seen it again, just like this movie. I only saw it once, and I don't remember liking it either. I think Sid Haig's in it, but I think it's a step up from this one. I would hope. Maybe I'll check it out, and I'll review that one next. Who knows? But let's talk about House of the Dead 1 for now. So what's the story of House of the Dead? Well, this movie is like a sort of prequel to the video game. We got this party going on an island. It's supposed to be the party of the year, and they all go there to have sex, do drugs, get shit-faced, have a good time. But as soon as they get there, there's all kinds of zombies there. So they all get eaten, and they have to fight to survive. Yada, yada, yada. So this is an action horror zombie movie. Not a comedy, although you are laughing your ass off while watching it because of how stupid it is and how poorly made it is, or just the bad decisions that were made. It's not comedy. It's not listed as a comedy, but you do get a few chuckles out of this. Now, this just so happens to be based on an arcade game that I loved growing up. There's like 4 or 5 of them now. They're remastering the first one, like they're remastering everything that came out ever. Seems to be the new trend in the video game industry. Let's remake this game. They're remaking games that came out 5 years ago. It's crazy. So, yeah, the original, I grew up loving that game. And the second one, so when this one was announced back in 2003 as a kid, I was really excited. But then, of course, when it came out, it had all kinds of nudity in it. And when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to rent movies that had boobs in it. So I had to wait a few years, and finally, I checked it out as a kid at around 12 years old or so, and I haven't seen it since, but I remember even thinking back then, this movie was not good. It was a disappointment. It's nothing like the video game, although they show all kinds of video game footage in it to remind you, hey, this is based on that video game or arcade game, whatever. But yeah, I was disappointed then, and rewatching it now, this movie's still fucking terrible. Let's get into it. What do I like about this movie? I'll always give shitty movies some positives. There's lots of boobs in it. Not lots, but there's some nudity, so you get that at least. And I like that the zombies in this movie run. I've never been a huge fan of slow zombies, the Romero zombies. Zombie movies in general, I don't really care for that much. There's some good ones, but I like the ones that run, and Return of the Living Dead and Zombieland. I like goofy zombie movies, not the serious ones. This one's not supposed to be goofy, but it is. But I like that they're running, and at some points they seem to be jumping like off trampolines. They can jump like 20, 30 feet in the air. It's crazy. There's some Matrix style shit going on in this movie. And I like that this has some gore. You got some head explosions and shit like that. And I like that we got Clint Howard in here for a little bit. And, shockingly, we got Ellie Cornell, Rachel, from Halloween 4. And playing a little badass in this movie. And so I liked seeing them. And I do kind of like the so bad it's good nature. Although I won't say this is a good movie. But it does have that kind of so bad it's good charm to it, where if you watch it with the right crowd, you can really have a good time watching this movie, just laughing at it and poking fun at it because it's fucking ridiculous. So it's got that going. So I didn't hate myself watching this movie. I wasn't so bored. It was just so terrible that I was entertained somewhat. And like it's such a train wreck that you just want to keep watching to see what happens next. How ridiculous is this going to get? And so getting into what I don't like about this movie, I don't like the start at the end bullshit. Every movie does it. X, that just came out recently from Ty West, starts at the end. So you know who's going to live, basically. But I hate that shit. This movie starts right at the end. You got some piss poor, dumb narration going on. Horrible dialogue. Some very funny bad dialogue. There's bad jokes in this movie. It's so cringy. I hate the island setting because it's nothing like the video game. Like, this should have been more like the arcade game. I wanted to see them go to a creepy, old, big-ass, dilapidated mansion, something atmospheric. I don't like the atmosphere of this movie. The setting on the island and some of the makeup on these zombies is not good. All the characters suck, very hollow, nothing to them, and just the acting across the board basically is abysmal. Fucking dreadful performances from everybody. And you got Jonathan Cherry from Final Destination 2 playing Kurian. And so yeah, terrible dialogue. The editing choices are laughable. I don't understand why they thought it was such a great, cool idea to splice in some footage of the arcade game like every 2 minutes or sometimes 10 times in a minute. Like, it's like how they transition from scene to scene. It's like, let's play this random clip from the game. And there was only one instance where it made sense because they were actually taking a moment from one of those games and recreating it in the movie when they're going down that tunnel and you got like those certain zombies that look just like the ones in the game. They kind of like play that footage from the game to be like, hey, this is what we're doing here. It looks like this. But everything else was like unrelated. Like, I don't know. It was such a terrible idea. Like, this movie should have went for broke. Like, be goofy, know that you're stupid, and just go for it. Make it extra jokey, extra silly. It's just trying to be a cool, stylized action movie for the most part, and it's just over the top. It's stupid. Like when they jump up in the air and like they freeze, and then the camera does like a 360 around them. The bullets are going at them in slow motion. It's trying to be so fucking cool, and it's just laughable. Like, that's the word of the video, laughable. This movie is laughable. And I don't think that's what they were going for. I don't like the soundtrack. I mean, the arcade game did kind of have a little bit of that kind of style, like the fast, action-y sound. Like, but this is more like techno, like dubstep type shit. I don't know what you would call it, but I don't like it. And, like, they should have, like I said, went more for the video game, like that style, like that setting, and also put those bosses in this movie. How badass would that have been? There's no real boss zombie in this movie. Like, those arcade games, because they're video games, they have boss battles, and they even show footage of one of them from part 2. So I was like, are we gonna get that? Like, no, we don't. So you could have had the 3-headed worm dragon thing from part 2. You could have had the headless one. You could have had so many. Like, there's so many to choose from. They show like a fish in a tank, and there are like zombie fish in one of the games, I think part 2. So I thought they were gonna show that, like have fish come out of the water. Like, missed opportunity. You could have had zombie piranha going after these people. So yeah, there just should have been more from the video games. Since this movie's already ridiculous, you might as well make it extra video game-like and have, like, bosses and shit. Just throw it all in here. So final thoughts. This is a terrible movie in almost every way, but it's so terrible that you actually get some enjoyment out of it. It's nothing like the video game, so don't expect that. Expect some terrible acting, terrible dialogue, just very over-the-top, dumb action, Matrix-style action sequences, and lots and lots of zombies getting their heads shot off, some gore, some nudity, and, that's really the best stuff there. Some of the gore and the beautiful ladies. That's all this movie really has to offer that's good. But I wasn't ever bored, so when it comes to House of the Dead, I'm going to give it a rating that it probably doesn't deserve, but I didn't hate myself watching this movie. I didn't hate it, so the lowest I can go is 1.5 stars out of 5. Alright, spoiler discussion. So, the credits play over the video games, or the arcade game montage. So, and then the guy, Jonathan Cherry, I'll just call him Cherry or Kyrian, he's narrating and he's basically spoiling who's going to live and die by the end of this. And when they're introducing the characters, they like freeze frame on them, and like he's like introducing all these characters and seems to know what they were doing before they got to the island and how they relate and everything, like how he knows who these people are really. Like they never properly introduce each other and get to know each other on the island. So I'm not sure how Kyrian knows so much about these people. But whatever. And then, so the party is sponsored by Sega, and I just think it's ridiculous that this movie is setting up this party to be like the best party ever. But they only show like 30, 40 extras here. Like they couldn't afford, on their $13 million budget, they couldn't afford to have like over 100 extras. This party looks lame as fuck. It's just typical, like, a bar over here and a stage over here for anyone to go on and start like doing karaoke. Like, it's a lame ass party, so I don't buy it. Like, these people spend like over $1,000 to get this special private boat ride to the island, and why does it have to take place on this island? Like, who would put a party like this on an island that you have to take like a long boat ride to get to? Like, is it worth it? Not really. Just go to your local bar and I'm sure you'll have a better time. And so, yeah, it was just such a stupid idea behind this movie. Just why the island setting? Like, if you're going to have it take place on an island, fine, but take away the whole party aspect. Like, these people could have been anybody going to this island for any other reason and it would have been better. This party thing is just stupid. And so, yeah, they get there, the party's dead. Literally, everyone's dead. And so the zombies have glowing eyes, and one scene only after this whole, like, Jaws segment. Kind of reminded me of Jaws. And, the girl goes in. You think she's gonna get pulled down, but it's a fake out. And then, Matt disappears in the blink of an eye. She finds him at this house. And when she finds him, the arm goes through his chest. So that was kind of cool, but Matt, how many times does she say Matt? It's fucking ridiculous. She says Matt's name like 1,000 times, and then even as he's dying in front of her, she says his name like 5 more times. Matt! Matt! Oh my god, Matt! You're dying, Matt! Oh my god, Matt! Do you see that arm through your chest, Matt? Jeez, that looks like it's painful, Matt. And so then Clint dies off camera. That's bullshit. And then even the blonde girl dies off camera. Like, there's a lot of off-camera kills in this film. So that's another missed opportunity. Like, you got gore for the zombies, but the characters, they all die like off camera. It's lame. And then, so the way they introduce the main zombie, the main villain of the movie, is pretty dumb. Like, how they show him, like, he doesn't have like a grand entrance. It's just like it randomly cuts to him in the forest hiding behind a bush like a few times. It's like the same shot again and again. Like, he's just lurking in the bushes. And so it was just such a weird way to show who the main villain is. Like, he should have had a better entrance into the movie. So then, yeah, the blonde, she turns into a zombie and she snaps the dude's neck. This one dude was in a porta potty that was tipped over, and for some reason, when he hears his friends coming by, he doesn't start like asking for help. It's all just to make it seem like maybe there's a zombie in there, but it's like realistically that dude would have been like, hey, get me the fuck out of here. There's shit all over the place. And so then I love how the captain, who is like Crazy Ralph, he's like, don't go to that island. It's got a reputation for being cursed and blah, blah, blah. He knows all this shit. But then when he gets there and he sees the zombies, later on he's acting like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the stories are true. But when he sees the zombies at first, he's not even surprised or shocked. He's just like shooting them one by one. Like, no big deal. Like, it's just another day at the office. Like, he's not shocked at all at the sight of these zombies who can swim in this movie. How many zombie movies can you name where they can swim? Not too many. Zombie by Fulci. and Land of the Dead, I think. And Jason Takes Manhattan, because he's technically a zombie, but whatever. So, I love how this is in a lot of movies, but when they find that tape of what happened at the party, where it shows everyone dying, before they got there, they find the tape and the footage on it seems to be like edited. It just keeps cutting to like different angles and shit. It's like, how's that fucking possible? It's not. Liberty, the Asian girl in the red, white, and blue outfit, she's a very nice girl. She does not even know this dude, Simon, who's like in the water about to get attacked. And she goes running out into the water with like no weapon to go save him. Like, she's one brave chick. And then she ends up getting pulled underwater as a result of going in there. Kind of a dumb decision on her part, but I appreciate the effort to be a hero. And so then we get this dumb like black and white flashback for like this origin story. And these characters in this flashback from like the 1800s, 1700s or whatever, they're supposed to be from Spain. But for some reason, they're all just speaking English to each other. Again, not realistic at all. They would be speaking in their native tongue to each other. They wouldn't just be like, hey, let's speak English to each other. Even though there's no one from an English-speaking country around, let's just speak English to each other instead of Spanish. So Greg dies, and when he dies, the whole like frame turns black around him, like he's in a studio, and it does like a 360 thing around him, like he's falling to the ground dead. I think it's supposed to be like how you die in the video game, if I remember correctly. When you die in the game, like everything turns black around the character and the camera goes around him as he falls to the ground. It's so dumb. Like, you don't do that. You don't take that from the video game and apply it to the movie. That's just really silly. But they don't do it to any other character, just Greg, weirdly enough. So then we get like the big action set piece of the movie. They're at like this courtyard or like a graveyard. There's like tombstones that are very flimsy and they move. And so, but they're like having this big shootout, and no matter how many zombies they kill, there's just more coming and coming. Again, like a video game, they just keep respawning. And also, like a video game, especially House of the Dead, these characters have infinite amount of ammo. They never run out of bullets. They just keep shooting. We never see them reload. These are normal, average people who just came here to party and do drugs and whatnot, and now they're fucking like gun experts, and they have really good, accurate aim, and they're just blasting all these zombies away, and they never run out of ammo, seemingly. And you got like all this Matrix shit going on, the bullets, the CGI bullets going by in slow-mo, they're jumping up in the air, and it's just so over the top, like trying to be too cool and stylized. And then, so after this whole thing finally ends, Cherry, or Kyrian, for some reason, as like Liberty or somebody is dying, he starts, he looks upset, he's like, oh man, and then we like zoom in into his head, and we, I guess, are seeing his thoughts, and his thoughts are everything we just saw for the last like 10 minutes, done in like a Saw-like montage where it's just like cut, and we're just seeing like all the shit we just watched in like 1,000 like little pieces at a time, just a few frames at a time, just everything we just saw cut together in little bits. Like, why are we watching everything we just witnessed again? Like, it made no sense. And then Ellie Cornell, she gets her legs chopped off. These are zombies that like to use weapons. She gets her legs chopped off, and it's awful CGI. It had to be. And I don't understand why it had to be. Like, she could have just, she's on the ground, she could have just they could have cut holes in the ground and put her legs through it and put some practical effect, like fake legs there. Like, it's not that hard. So the CGI was just unnecessary. Then Simon gets a wound on his cheek. They have like acid spit, and it like hurts his cheek. So he's just got like this little piece of skin missing on his cheek, and he starts to act like he's the Elephant Man now. He's an underwear model. That's his job. And so now he's like, oh, no one's ever going to look at me. Like, he just goes on and on about how he's the most disgusting looking man on planet Earth now, that he might as well just kill himself. And that's what he ends up doing. He sacrifices himself, shoots the powder, the gunpowder shit, and blows up the whole house. to, you know, buy them time, save them, whatever. But it's just so ridiculous. Like, dude, it's just a scratch, like a little piece of skin missing on your face, and you're acting like it's the end of the world. Then there was a moment that just made me laugh, because to me it seemed like the actor said the line wrong and then corrected himself, and they kept that take anyways. But maybe it was written that way, but he says, "Did you watch them rip her apart?" Like, he stumbles and he changes the word. He's like, "Did you watch them rip them apart?" It's like, did he say it wrong? Is that how it was written? And Kieran, I guess, is a scientist, or he just knows what mutated blood cells look like. He looks through the scope, he sees the mutated blood cells, which is how they're coming back from the dead. He's like, "Oh, these are blood cells." The other chick didn't know, and she's the one that seems to be the smart one the whole movie. She didn't know what she was looking at through that thing, and he's like, "Oh, these are blood cells, and they're mutated." It's like, well, how the fuck do you know? Like, was he a scientist? Did they establish that, and I just didn't hear that line of dialogue? Like, who is Kieran? What is his day job? How does he know what mutated blood cells look like? So then they're going through the tunnel, and these zombies look ridiculous. They look like they're those snipers with, like, the ghillie suits and shit. They're running off out of the walls and stuff, and it's just so laughable. Like, the costume designs on some of these zombies. So Kieran quickly puts it all together, like what's going on, how they're coming back from the dead, by looking at the mutated blood cells. And then the main boss zombie, I'll call him that because I don't know what the fuck his name is. So the boss zombie and his little minions, they're holding Kieran down on the table, and Kieran says to the boss zombie, he goes, "You created it all." I wrote it down. "So you created it all to be immortal. Why?" You just answered your... I don't get it. Like, so then his response to that, the boss zombie, after being asked, "Hey, why did you create it all to be immortal?" He goes, "To live forever." Because, you know, that's completely different from being immortal. Those are two separate things. So what kind of dialogue is this? I laughed out loud. I rewound it like 10 times. I couldn't believe my fucking ears. I had like cleaned up. I was like, did I hear that correctly? "You created it all to become immortal. Why?" "To live forever." Okay, and then we get like this flashback sequence to show all kinds of dumb shit. And then like they run out of the building, blows up, and then the chick gets stabbed in between her tits. She falls on the ground. You think she's dead, but she gets just enough energy to get back up and decapitate the main zombie, but he's still alive because that's not good enough. So she stomps on his head, and that's one of the best gore effects in the movie, seeing his brains get squashed. So then the AMS helicopter arrives. AMS is, I believe, the organization from the arcade games. And so, yeah, and then Jonathan Cherry reveals that his name is Kieran. So he's the bad guy in the original game. So he's our hero in this movie, but in the game, he ends up being the main enemy. He is the one that is spreading the apocalypse and creating the zombies. And so yeah, and then it's implied that he reanimated the girl. Like, she died. She got that sword through her tits and then had enough energy to finish off the boss zombie. And I think she died, but then he says something like, I didn't write it down, but he's like, "Ain't love a bitch?" But I think he says something like he reanimated Alicia. So yeah, and who called the AMS people? How did they know to get there? Was that ever explained? They just show up literally when everything's said and done, like it's all finished, like, oh, where were you people like fucking yesterday? So those are my thoughts on House of the Dead. What are your thoughts on this movie? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And remember, it's all an opinion. You don't need to get butthurt about it.